It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Hilary Levy-Friedman. Dr. Hilary Levy-Friedman is the author of Playing to Raising Children in a Competitive Culture. She is a professor at Brown University in the Department of Education. Professor Levy-Friedman is currently the president of the Rhode Island chapter of the National Organization for Women, Rhode Island Now. She is also a member of the Public Policy Committee of the United Way of Rhode Island and the Platform and Issues Committee of the Rhode Island Democratic Party. Additionally, she volunteers as an active court-appointed special advocate. She is a civic leader as well, and having served as the chair of East Greenwich Democratic Town Committee and as an affordable housing commissioner in the town of East Greenwich, Rhode Island, and additionally as a board of trustee at Temple Torah Yisrael.
Anise always makes all of us sound so good. So it's like embarrassing. Now I'm like Caroline. And I'm kind of like Caroline today because I have my buttons on. So in your honor. So yes, I'm Hilary Levy-Friedman. I'm here as the president of the Rhode Island chapter of the National Organization for Women, and we're so glad that Anise is part of our PAC, our Political Action Committee. And I wanted to start with something that I learned at my last event for Hope and Change for Haiti, which was sac passe. Thank you. Well, one person did it. I was all excited to use it again. All right, so the theme for this year's International Women's Day, nationally and internationally, is balance for better health. And if you look on their website, you'll see this image of lots of women standing like this, because we're trying to promote balance in various ways. And to me this week, especially at the end of this week, this more reminded me of that emoji when it's like the girls like this, because I think a lot of us would say when we think about balance this week, we're like, I don't know if we achieved balance this week. We achieved something this week, but I'm not sure it was balance. So in this sense, I think balance means two things. One is equity, and the balance here is about representing men and women equally in various fields. And we see that in politics, as our great Senator Whitehouse mentioned, representations of women who are representing others in elected government, but we have a lot of work to go when it comes to business. And just today, I don't know if you saw this news, but one of the classes I teach is actually about sports, so I'm very into the women's soccer team, the U.S. women's soccer team, who's suing U.S. soccer because they are not compensated like the men are, despite the fact they actually win a lot more than the men do. So that one really makes no sense. So there's balance in representation. I know our treasurer has done an amazing job working in the business sector to make sure that men and women are represented equally on boards, and I think that's really important. On the other hand, we want to think about balance in our life. And when I'm talking to students a lot and lots of other people, I say, well, maybe you can have it all, but never at the same time. So life is this big balancing act, right? And as all of us, as Anise mentioned, much of this work is volunteer. And even for those of our great electeds who are compensated for their work, pretty sure they're not getting $15 an hour to compensate them for all the time they put in. So when we're thinking about balance, we have to think about how do we make all the different parts of our lives fit together. And for many of us, a big part of that identity might be being a parent or guardian. And that's a big part of it. I'm going to dash from here to get my kids after this and take them to some other class and make sure they get fed tonight. So that's something I have to deal with. And they may have heard a lot about abortion last night because I forced them. I had to watch because I couldn't be here. So they got to see that on the TV last night on Capitol TV. Thank goodness for that. Also, many of us are employed outside of the home, whether it's full-time or part-time, and that's something to work around as well. And when I look at all the people I know in this room, they don't volunteer with just one group. They might not be Caroline Morgan, but they volunteer often with more than one group. And so how do we make this work? And so I was thinking, we've had this big fight in the House in the past week, and we also had Senate hearings about the Reproductive Health Care and the Reproductive Privacy Act. So how many of you were here Tuesday night into Wednesday morning? And then keep your hand up if you were here last night too. Look at that, so you did it balanced this week. But part of achieving balance, not just as individuals, but as activists and for the movement, is to know that we're not just one individual or one organization. And so next week, when we fight this battle in the Senate here, right, when there's a committee vote that's gonna pass, right? And I anticipate a floor vote next week too, right? Yes. We have to know that not all of those same people can be here, right? So we're gonna balance each other out and who can be where, when, and recognize that we all wear these different hats and identities, and that's part of fighting all the battles together. I just heard that, for example, the next big set of bills, the next week, we're gonna be hearing about the gun bills, and again, not all of us can be here for all parts of that debate, but together we can find a balance and represent everybody. So just to, wrap up, a few of the big things for International Women's Day is to celebrate women's achievement, which I feel like we're doing here today in Rhode Island. The second thing is to raise awareness against bias, which I know that we're going to hear more about this evening, and then to take action for equality. So for those of you, I already heard someone say, I'm not that politically involved. Hopefully today is going to raise your awareness and get you more involved and have you here to fight for equality in all its forms. So just remember that a balanced world is a better world in all sorts of ways. It's gender balance is not just a women's issue, it's also an economic issue, and we should remember that. And what's good for the economy is good for all of us as individuals and also for our state and our country. So find the way that you can contribute so that we can have a balanced activist community. So thank you so much for having me here today. Congratulations to Caroline.